I'm Jim,
And I'm Kevin,
and we are.
the Signal Brothers. Welcome back to our viewers for another episode, live podcast of the Signal Brothers. Today is an interesting time because we're going to be covering climate change. Before we do, we're going to go through some of the basic things that we cover at the beginning of all our podcasts. First of all opinions expressed by Jim and myself are solely ours. They're not a reflection of our employers or our family. We love to take questions related to the subject we're covering during the podcast. So if you have a question you want to ask or a comment, please put it in the chat. We got a new little feature here that'll actually pop it up on the window so everybody will see your comment when you post it. So we try to get to those comments as soon as we can. Sometimes Jim and I get pretty into what we're discussing, and sometimes we may need to go back, but that's okay. We'll get to them. Got a subject you're passionate about? Let us know. Let Jim and I know. We'd love to get you on the podcast. We'd love to have guests on the podcast. It's the best way to really have a great conversation is to invite others. You don't want to be on the podcast, but you got an idea for a podcast, go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll cover it. One of our listeners, our viewers and followers has made a recommendation to us, and it's going to be our podcast for the next one we do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, without further ado, Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. We're going to turn up the heat. Climate change. A subject near and dear to all of our hearts. It's widely debated. And like everything else, there's a lot of information out there, some of it right, some of it wrong. It's kind of hard to decipher. The one thing I will say before we get too deep into it is regardless of which side we fall on, I think we can all agree that as stewards of our planet, we're doing a pretty lousy job. Garbage floating in the oceans, trash littering the streets. We could do a lot better to take care of our planet. That's and we can all agree on. To that end, climate change is normally debated as whether it exists or not. I don't see it that way. My thought in the matter is it exists. We know, but to what degree are human beings culpable and responsible for that change? To what degree do we actually affect it? A couple things we do know for sure. Basically, the scientific consensus is that the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, give or take. We know that there's been heating and cooling periods throughout that history, volcano eruptions, meteor strikes, all kind of other activities taking place. We know of at least 2 ice ages. So we've heated up once, cooled down once, come back from it. We know this is a cycle. We know what happens. So we know that there are periods of heating and warming. We know there's change within the environment depending on internal and external factors. With that, we established 2 basic things. 1, climate change is real. It happens. It's always happened. It's going to continue to happen. 2, human beings are not necessary for climate change. It's happened millions and billions of years before we ever walked the earth. It continues to happen now. So to what degree do we as humans actually affect it? I think that's more direct part of the argument. Kevin?
Yeah, Jim, so I agree with a lot that you said, but I think the research shows that we as humans are negatively impacting the climate. I agree with you that there are swings in the climate change, but I think there's enough data today to clearly show that the human race has had, especially since the early 1900s, has had a direct impact with the greenhouse gases being emitted into the environment. I mean, I think there's several factors to that. It's greenhouse gases, it's the growth of population, it's the domestication of livestock. I mean, there's many contributing factors that go to that, Jim. But I'm a firm believer that our time, like you said, the Earth has been around 4.5 billion years. And if you look on a clock, and you were to go to midnight, humans showed up on the earth at 11:59.
Yeah.
Right. So our time on this earth is relatively short. And I
Mhm.
think it's hard to tell. And because in the grand scheme of things, while humans showed up at 11:59, each generation is a millimeter of a second, right? Just a short blink of an eye that you and I exist on this earth, right? As a human being. My concern is, Jim, I got to be honest with you, is I believe it's real. I'm concerned about it, and I'm not concerned for me. My time on the earth, left on the earth, is relatively short. But what I'm concerned about is what are we leaving behind for our kids and our grandkids.
Yeah, I agree.
But I will tell you, I am conflicted. I did a lot of research on this.
Same.
And I go back, and so there's two things that I want to cover, right? The Earth is supposed to go through another ice age between the next 10 and 50,000 years. And again, in human terms, that is a super long time. In the Earth's time, it's not a long time. It's a blink of an eye. But if you do the research, it says that our impact has postponed that ice age by at least 100,000 years by the global warming, by the impacts we've had with greenhouse gases. On the same token, this is the really weird thing about this when I do the research is we're having impacts on the currents in the ocean. And it is potentially possible that we are stopping a major current in the Atlantic Ocean that will put Northern Europe into a deep freeze again. But the reality is because we've been here such a short time and because we've only been collecting data, Jim, for the last, 70 years, maybe 80 years max.
Yeah.
I don't think we have enough data to really know.
Well, if you weigh the 4.5 billion years that we weren't here versus the 100,000, 200,000 years, whatever, that we have. But I mean, you brought up a good point about the ocean currents. Think about this. And this is where I'm conflicted because I do see things. I'm not blind. You know what I mean? Think about this. What about all the rivers we dam that are no longer dumping into the ocean? We make man-made lakes. We've got two right down the street from me. Two major lakes that we dammed up rivers for. That water's no longer dumping into the ocean. I mean, things like that. And you got your unintentional stuff, then you got your intentional stuff. But see, you hear all these climate change arguments. We never talk about, nobody ever talks about damming up the rivers or to make lakes. Nobody ever talks about the change in the amount of water that's not dumping into the oceans any longer. We even had a thing on the Panama Canal, where you've got, water and muddy water and leveling and coming back and dumping in and pulling out. Nobody talks about any of that. They have an agenda of things they want to talk about. And they'll ignore stuff like, well, everybody took, private jets to this summit to talk about climate change. You need to be told that is not you know what I'm saying? That they're contradicting themselves. They'll talk about emissions from agriculture like you brought, but nobody talks about the millions of people that smoke cigarettes every 5 minutes. Because why? Because they make money off of that. See, there's so much agenda going on. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's like COVID. Never let a good, catastrophe go to waste. Let's do something with it. So they got an agenda here, and when they talking about what's going to happen in 10,000 or 20,000 or delaying this by 100,000, dude, they can't tell me what the weather is going to be like this weekend with any degree of reliability. You expect me to believe what they tell me is going to happen in 100, 10,000, 100,000 years? It's ridiculous. How many climate change predictions? A lot, I'll tell you right up, spoiler alert, have been made that have not come true, and people will still buy into it every time somebody says something. The climate is changing. The climate does change. The climate always will change, but it's not a sky is falling situation like they want us to believe. I mean, what's the one that we know the most about? We hear the most about is Al Gore's. The polar ice caps will be gone by 2012. Well, guess what? They're still here. And we could run down a list of all other, climate changes predictions that didn't come true. Global cooling. You remember that in the 70s? That was the big threat back then. Acid rain in the 80s. We were going to be destroyed by acid. That didn't happen. Again and again and again, they make these predictions and they never happen. I mean, how many times do we have to? Yes, the climate changes. I'm not blind. In October of the year, when I was a kid, we got our trick-or-treat outfits. We'd have to get them 3 times the size that we were to fit them over our giant winter coats. And we'd have to go sloshing through 6 inches, 12 inches of snow to go trick-or-treating. Now you wear a light jacket. I see that. I'm not blind to that. The climate is changing. But to assume that in 4.5 billion years, the 150 years that we've been industrialized is going to have any lasting effect is just presumptuous. The planet.
I disagree with you, Jim.
Well,
I think there's enough facts out there, right? And since the 1900s, right, our sea level rise has been about 7 to 8 inches since the industrialization.
Have you ever seen the pictures that they post sometimes of this place that they took a picture of back in?
I got you, but 6 or 7 inches is negligible over 150 years, right? The key is by 2100, right? The sea will rise anywhere from another 9 inches to more than 3 feet. And I think there's enough scientific data to prove that that's going to happen. If you look at the glaciers in a lot of the mountains, like in the Alps in Europe, if you look at a lot of yes, there are still polar caps, but if you look at what's going on in the Arctic and the race to do drilling in the Arctic Circle, because a lot of the ice is going away, there are clear indicators, Jim, that there is more of the ice melt occurring across the globe.
Well, then you would think that these predictions that they're making would actually be coming true, but they're not.
Well, not everyone becomes true, but a lot of them are. And I just think we owe it to the future generations. I'm not saying that we have to go extreme, but I think we need to take pragmatic approaches, Jim, and do smart stuff. We have abused the earth. We have absolutely. Humans have abused this earth. I read, I forget where I read it. I have it here. Scientists believe that we're in the 6th mass extinction that has started, and all the indicators are there, right? Extinction rates are estimated between 100 to 1,000 times higher than natural background rates. Those are coming from humans. Deforestation. If you look at the rise in temperatures in the ocean, what it's doing to the ocean, I mean, there's a lot of changes that are occurring, and a lot of it is contributed to the greenhouse gases that we are creating.
Well, what do you think would happen if human beings disappeared tomorrow? In total, how long would it take the planet to go back to healing itself? It wouldn't even take a generation. You look at some of these places that have been abandoned, amusement parks or buildings or whatever. How long does it take nature to start growing stuff all over them again? Not even a generation. I mean, like you said, but we're a hiccup. We're a blip. This planet existed fine long before us. It's going to exist fine long after us. It won't take nothing to heal after we're gone.
The reality is, Jim, and again, doing a lot of research and prepping for this podcast, while climate change is probably the most immediate and systematic danger that we can control, there are several others that can eliminate the human race. First being artificial intelligence, right? You look at what's going on with the AI race, right? Another is the threat of a nuclear war is still there, right?
We're really good at killing ourselves. Absolutely.
We are really good. How about biological risks and pandemics? We just went through the pandemic not too long ago. And the next one could be just as bad. And then a lot of the things that we do to the environment, Jim, with if you look at what we do with chemicals and things, we are actually doing things to degrade the environment and and are having a negative impact that could end up killing the cycle that have gotten humans to where they're at. So it's an interesting fact, right? That not only climate change could end humanity, we could do it to ourselves in many forms and fashions.
Well, who's to say that if we weren't here, how much would the water, be rising 3 inches instead of 5, 7? I mean, how much are we affecting it, or are we just accelerating what's already happening?
It's a valid point. It's a valid point. But here's what we do as humans. We're building all these houses right on the coast. If we know that there's rise, whether we contribute to it or not, why are we building?
Yes.
Why are we not doing pragmatic building to prepare for what's coming in the future?
And we don't,
because everybody wants the view, right?
Yeah.
It's all
yeah, and we have cities like, say, New Orleans that are established below sea level in a society that believes the ocean is rising catastrophically because nobody can do anything simple, and yet they keep rebuilding. I'm like, what? I get it's your home. I get that, but I mean, come on, you're admitting that the oceans are rising. You're talking about this all the time. We're trying to fund this. Raising taxes, by the way, saves the environment. We're doing all this, and yet you're still building like in the way you're talking about. You're buying up lines on the coastline. You're rebuilding these cities below sea level, and all you want to talk about is how bad, the sea is rising, and yet you're still doing it. That was one point I was going to bring up.
Here's some clear impacts that we see happening, and I believe it's based on our contribution to greenhouse gases. Hurricanes are becoming more intense. That's a fact, right? They don't hit the U.S. all the time, but they are getting much stronger and much more intense. The droughts are becoming a bigger problem. Look what's going on out west with the Colorado River, Lake Mead, and Lake Powell. Go look at the levels for Lake Mead and Lake Powell.
We were there at Lake Mead 5 years ago. Yeah, they're talking about how they're not going to be able to supply power much longer if it doesn't rise back up.
Absolutely. Look at the wildfires, how crazy wildfires have gotten based on drought.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the ones in Canada, the ones down in the Southwest. I mean, we've had a lot of major forest fires. It's another issue that FEMA has to deal with is forest fires. If you look at just the flooding, the floodplains, and how they're changing with when we do get precipitation. Look what's going on in Hawaii, on the north side of Oahu, and the major flooding and all the issues they're having there. I mean, that's unprecedented. These are definitely changes that are happening. The question is, are we contributing? Great question. I think
unprecedented. Yeah, unprecedented in the time we've been recording it.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that.
So, exactly. But again, who's to say that's not the natural course of things? And how much do we? I don't believe we affect it anywhere near. I believe we affect it, but nowhere near to the catastrophic degree that's being put out to the public.
So should we just ignore it?
Hell no. We absolutely need to be stewards of our planet. Absolutely, without question. Without question, But I mean, you think about the things that they're talking about, and they generate fear by putting this stuff out there. And they generate fear, and if you do this and do this and do this, and we're going to raise these taxes, and we're going to throw this over to the climate change fund instead of we're not really putting it back in our politicians' pockets, we'll cure the problem. And it hasn't been cured yet. And everyone that they use this for has not come to pass. In the 70s, they were talking about another ice age, like you were talking about a minute ago, but much quicker. Famine was predicted. In the 80s, we were going to have California dropping into the ocean, nations flooding. I mean, none of that came true. I mean, other catastrophes, and other more disappearing ice. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and so little of it has come true.
It hasn't come true. That's right, because there's not enough data going back, recorded data going back far enough to conclusively build models that can give us a long-term impact, at least from my perspective. That's how I see it, Jim. Number one. Number two, we have taken steps, right? CFCs are gone.
Yeah.
Right. We removed CFCs. I mean, so there are things that we have agreed and have done to mitigate it. But yeah, go ahead.
We've gone to paper straws, but still wrapped them in plastic.
Yeah, but those are not the things that I'm worried about. I'm worried about what are the things we can do to help mitigate it. I think we have a responsibility. We have an absolute responsibility to do it. And I will tell you, with the advances of AI, I think AI is going to help us figure out, Jim, if we are truly impacting the climate and to what impact.
Mm-hmm.
I think AI, with enough of the right data, because the one thing I've learned about using AI in my new job is the data you get out of AI is only good as what you input into it.
GIGO.
So, but I believe AI can help us with that. But my other concern with AI is if you remove the emotion of being a human and you're AI and you're looking at the root cause of what's destroying the planet.
If you come to the realization that it's humans, we're done.
Exactly. And if AI ever gets smart enough to realize who's the one contributing and impacting the planet the most, AI might decide that they need to eradicate the human race from the planet of the Earth.
I still think if you're on a scale of 1 to 100 as to how much we affect, I'd say we're about a 5. I mean, the planet has done this since it was formed. I mean, it's gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's at other species here. You telling me we're worried about cow farts when there was dinosaurs farting 65 million years ago? I mean, come on. It's just ridiculous. I mean, we do affect the planet and we do need to take better care of it. But if we disappeared tomorrow, again, I doubt we'd even be noticed. The planet would just go back to its normal cycle. We wouldn't be a hiccup.
You're right. If humans disappeared, but I think what we want to agree on, Jim, is we don't want the human race to disappear off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
So what are the things we can do, right, to mitigate those factors to the best of our ability?
People see this as a very large problem. And I think that's part of the problem is it's presented to us as this huge catastrophic thing that's coming, whether we want it to or not. The thing that we need to slow it down. Again, I believe we do have an impact. I just don't believe it's the major impact that we're being put out. If you were to tell people that every little thing you do can help us in the long term, instead of we need to fix this right now today. For example, before I got my boat, I used to go do a lot of bank fishing. I would always take extra Kroger bags with me. Why did I disappear?
Sorry about that.
I would always take extra little Kroger shopping bags with me. You know what I'm talking about? And I'm there fishing. I drop a couple of lines. And while I'm waiting, it doesn't take anything out of me to walk around that area and pick up and put trash in the bags. Throw them in the back of my truck. Now, I go fishing 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week. I grab a bag or 2 each time. Doesn't seem like much, right? But for me, over a year, that's over 100 bags. Now, that's 100 bags that did not make it into the lake. Now, get 10 people to do that. 1,000, 10,000 people to do that. You see what I'm saying? That's how we need to present it. Everybody can do a little thing. It's not this huge problem that's unsolvable, because you present somebody with a problem that's unavoidable. Why waste time trying to make an effort? You know what I mean? Present them with something. You know what? If we keep this path going, we're eventually going to, that's not how they're presenting it. If we keep this path going, we're going to die tomorrow is how they're presenting it. And that's not the case. We don't
know. The reality is we really don't know, Jim.
Yeah. But if we pick up and we start doing this kind of thing now, progressively over the next few generations, we're gonna equalize. We're gonna get back to a more copacetic relationship with the planet and the ecology. I mean, that's how it needs to be presented. That's how people can help, not by thinking that the sky is going to fall next week and we need to do something about it today while I'm still taking a personal jet to the conference.
Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah, it's not about one person.
Mm-mm.
Okay. It's about what we're doing collectively. And so I think there was a great movement within the global community to do stuff. And I know not everybody's going to play nicely, but if we consider ourselves a world power, regardless of what other countries are doing or not doing, we should set the example. And I'm not saying we have to be the best at everything we do, but we should be taking steps to mitigate factors to the best of our ability. I'm not saying impact people's lives, but we got to come up with a clear roadmap. I don't think mandating that you could only buy electric cars by 2030 is the answer.
No.
Because there's issues with, how is the electric generated? How is the car produced? How are the batteries produced? Again, it's about a long-term strategic, pragmatic approach, Jim, that I see that we need to take. I'm certainly not the expert on it, and I don't know what those things necessarily are, but they definitely need to be done.
Yeah. Like if everybody were to do a little something, if everybody were to start recycling instead of throwing in the trash, if everybody was just little things, it don't seem like you're doing much at all, but you get 100,000 people doing it, that makes an impact.
Absolutely. Jim, believe it or not, I got somebody showing my house. I need 2 seconds. You're going to have to take the screen so I can avoid my dogs going nuts. So you got it for a minute, buddy.
All right. Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Climate change. Like we were talking about, the planet's gone through many, many cycles since it was first formed, regardless of how you believe it was formed. But there is some impact that the human beings are having. The debate is really how much impact we're having. Can we do better? Yes. Should we do better? Absolutely. There's still going to be some cooling periods, some warming periods, just some disasters here and there. And that would be the case whether we were here or not. What we can do is responsibly make an effort to do better, to treat the planet better, to treat each other better, and it goes beyond just trying to exist with our neighbors. It's taking care of the planet, and it's making it may not lessen the hurricane. It may not, cease the wildfires, but you don't want trash in the ocean, an island of trash in the ocean. I mean, that can affect so much. That can affect boating. It can affect your wildlife in the oceans. I mean, we know it does. Your sea turtles, your dolphins, and fish and different wildlife in the oceans, we know are adversely affected by that. And we depend on that for food. We depend on that to keep the delicate cycle of the ecology of the ocean going. While Kevin and I disagree on the degree to which humans are a factor, we do agree on the fact that we need to take better care of the planet. And I believe that's something that we can take away from this at this time. But the planet is resilient. I mean, you give it a chance to heal, it's going to heal. You clean up the garbage in the ocean, the wildlife's going to come back. You clean up the garbage in the lakes and the forests and the tree lines and all that stuff. That the grass is going to grow again. Trees are going to grow again. The planet will heal itself. We just need to give it the opportunity to do so. But the bad thing about the climate change, what it always gets is how much our leadership, our government pushes the extremities, how much our media pushes the extremities. They'll grab onto one idea. You can see in the screen behind me that I've put up. It was global cooling, and then it was global warming, and then climate change, because they've gone through the cycles of each one, and they use that as a fear tactic to get people to donate, to get people to pay higher taxes, to get people to do whatever they need them to do, just like they do everything else. But the truth is that we can contribute without the taxes. We can contribute without them having to pass reforms and pass laws and pass bills. And we need to impress upon our leadership that when they go to talk about these things, what impact are they having on the environment that they're supposedly trying to protect? They take the private planes, they take the luxury liners, they take everything like that, and they just, it's like they're contradicting themselves, or just showing that they're not of the same care level that they expect you to be. I mean, we're all in this together. None of this gets out of this alive. So we each need to do our part to include our leaders, and we need to impress that upon them.
Jim, nothing more amazes me when you make an appointment with somebody and they show up late. And you're supposed to stop everything you're doing to accommodate them.
Mm-hmm.
But an appointment today for 11 o'clock for somebody to come work on my sprinklers, and they show up at 1:30.
I feel you. Well, you think we ran the gamut on climate change?
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the current events. Looking forward to it.
No kings.
Well, I think if we had a king, there'd be no protest allowed.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct.
I'm just going to say that. So what I love is the fact that people can protest because they have Trump deranged syndrome. They have TDS, and they believe that, Trump is running amok. And I agree, there's things he's doing that are a little bit crazy, but they're more, just my opinion, they're more narcissistic than they are him trying to be a control freak.
Yeah.
But hey, I think a lot of the protests went well and peaceful. There was a few that went amok, and those people did get arrested. When you start throwing rocks at facilities and try to enter facilities, you're going to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot of report on violence. So awesome. It's a great thing, but I think they're an administration off, because I mean, you want to call him a king or a dictator? Look at Fauci and look at the last administration. Look at them. They wanted you to have to show vaccine cards. They wanted you to. They wouldn't allow you to go to church. They wouldn't allow you to have family gatherings larger than 5 or 10 people. They wanted your neighbor to report you if you saw too many people gathered at your. I'm sorry, you're in the wrong administration to be protesting against kings. It's ridiculous. But they exercised their right, and they did it peacefully. So it was a protest, not necessarily. I know we had them here in Nashville.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, I don't get it. I don't understand it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, probably the only thing that really, really bothered me was listening to Jane Fonda. But that's a whole other story.
Well, you're a better man than me for listening to her, because I wouldn't give her 5 minutes of my time.
Yeah.
Operation Epic Fury.
Epic Fury.
I tell you, Jim, I think Trump got this wrong. I think his whole approach has been wrong, and I am not down with boots on the ground for this. I'm just going to give you my take on that. We put boots on the ground, we're going to have a really big problem on our hands.
I have to agree. I don't, I get freeing Iran from him and those policies and freeing the people. And I just don't know. And we've talked about this before on other things. I mean, I understand that we have interests elsewhere in the world, but we got so much going on here right now. We need to have the focus here. Boots on the ground, I don't know about. I wasn't real sure about the strike, but it is what it is. But boots on the ground, I don't think and I've said this before, we're never going to solve the problems in the Middle East. We're just not going to. It's a waste of time. We need to protect our interests and our people.
Absolutely.
But that's the limit of it in my mind.
Here's another issue is, we've been bombing now, for 2-3 weeks in there?
Mm-hmm.
They're still firing missiles. The protesters are not in control of the country. Clearly, you never know what's going to happen when you make a decision to do something, right? You can always second guess yourself. And he made a decision to go in and do it, and thought there would be an uprising by now that would change the course. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed it. The Iranian Republican Guard is still in control. They're still launching missiles and drones.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What do we do from here? So we're here. I think the big question we have to ask is, we're here. Where do we go from here? What's the right approach?
Well, the fact that his son took over, those are the early reports, right afterwards. I mean, you knew that was going to happen, not necessarily your son, but somebody else is going to step in and take the reins. It's just it's the same as taking out a drug lord. Once somebody's going to step right, they're just waiting in the wings, step right up and take the same position, do the same thing. I mean, you're not gonna win with that. The best you can do is keep it to a controllable level.
The Iranian Republican Guard is staying in control of that country, and so I think this is not going to be as easy as they thought.
Yeah, it's never is. Never is.
Yeah.
But I have to say that even though I voted for him, and I don't necessarily agree with the whole Iran thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the approach was wrong. I think we covered that in the last podcast when we covered the current events about the start of Operation Epic Fury.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. How about Congressman Sheila Syphilis McCormick from Florida?
Yeah, it amazes me because we know there's widespread corruption going on. It's just every now and then it just seems like they grab a fall guy. That's just my thought. They
or
know
in this case, fall gal.
Fall gal. We know all this goes on. Everybody knows this. It's a joke anymore. So it's like we grab this one. We're gonna make it. We're gonna say, hey, we're doing something about it, and this gal's gonna go down. She should.
Yeah, she's under federal investigation as well, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, she's a Democrat, so I'm not pointing at Democrats because there are Republicans that are just as crooked as her, right? So I'm not pointing. I want to be very clear that I'm not pointing the finger just at her.
Right. Rules are rules. I don't care who breaks them. You're guilty of corruption. I got you.
Absolutely. I saw something in the news yesterday about a guy actively trading stocks while he was sitting on some committee or something. And I'm like, really? Come on, man. So it should be interesting what happens with her. They're talking about potentially expelling her from Congress. Mm-hmm. She is facing federal charges. So I think they all should be held accountable, not just her.
Not just her.
So I agree with you that they're making an example of her, but is that it's not just her, right? Just like we keep uncovering the fraud out there. It's not just Minnesota. It's not just the Somalis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
you got to pick somewhere to start. I guess, Hey, folks. It's just, I think it's everywhere in so many places. They got to start somewhere. And I think they feel that if they're going to make a sacrifice, the public will be, satisfied that something's being done somewhere. Somebody's being held accountable. Somebody's being, brought, charges being brought to bear against somebody. Okay, we can lull the public into a false sense of security. She should pay for it, but she's not alone. Others need to go. Now, if this is the beginning and it continues on to do the same thing, great. We'll get this one. And again, as Kevin stated, we don't care, Democrat, Republican. If they're doing wrong, they need to be held accountable. I'm not a party solid guy like that. So hopefully this is just the beginning, and they'll move on to others as well. Let this set a precedent that we're done taking this kind of corruption. We can only hope.
All right, on to the DHS shutdown. So it's amazing. For those of you that know me on Facebook, I've been going in some pretty heated conversations with people about this whole thing and ICE being in the airports. And let me just tell you, I got it. There are changes that have to be made in immigration. There are changes that need to be done in how we do business. But not funding our government is not the answer. Federal workers not getting paid is not the right answer. It is frustrating to me, Jim. It is absolutely frustrating that we are holding funding for the government to operate. Fund the government, keep it operating, work across the aisle and come up with comprehensive legislation?
Well, again, it's not Democrat and Republican. It's Democrat and Trump. Anything that he wants, they don't care what it is. I think once we move out of the Trump era, we'll get more cooperation from Democrats. Hopefully, you can hope, but it's not even without him. Maybe they would be cross knives. But the only thing is, and I've said this before, and you notice it. No matter what he says, even if other presidents did it and they loved it, he says it, they're gonna try and they're against it, without question. And that's what this is just another example of. And I mean, you don't like TSA, you don't like DHS showing up there. You know what? You and I both have been in the military. If we walked around, we're used to seeing people move crowds along with their assault rifle, move along with waving their AK-47 at. We don't think anything of it. The thing is, they've given such a bad view of law enforcement over the last 10, 15, 20 years that people automatically think, oh, I'm in danger. Really? Why are you in danger? That gun's not going to leap out of his pocket and shoot at you. You got to do something stupid, let's face it, to get them to react to you. I've seen stories where these DHS agents are holding people's place in line so they can go to the bathroom. I mean, that is not a threat. You know what I mean? It's just, you got to know how to view something. It's funny to me that people, he has a gun, I feel threatened. Do you realize how many people walk by you just now that have a gun that you just didn't happen to see? What's the difference? You know?
Yeah. I'll just tell you this whole thing. I totally disagree with keeping the government shut down, keeping federal workers not paid, especially when Congress is getting paid.
Yes.
That's what pisses me off.
There.
Right?
Yes.
And then Delta stopped giving congressmen special perks. All the airlines should make the congressmen have to get in those freaking lines.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I guarantee they would end it quickly.
People don't understand something by hearing about it. They're understanding it by experiencing it. That's what changes.
100%. 100%, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
All right. A lot going on with NASA. This coming week, you have the Artemis 2 launch for the rocket that's going to go around the moon. Not land on the moon, but go around the moon. That's interesting. Also in the news, NASA spending $20 billion to build a base on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I read a little bit about the article. Over the next 10 years, they're talking about, doing some experiments on the moon, then establishing, developing to resources and actually making it so people could actually be stationed on the moon. I'm interested to see how that really goes.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what they're planning on doing on the moon. I mean, you think trips there or from there to somewhere else, if they can manufacture fuel or propulsion systems there, you know what I mean? Because the biggest problem of getting into space is the amount of fuel we have to carry. Because if you plan on coming back, you need enough fuel to break the escape velocity of the body that you're on.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fuel. So you have to, it's like Kevin, when you take your boat out, if you want to go 100 miles, you got to make sure you have 200 miles of fuel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We're in a race with the Chinese. That's what's pushing this, right? The Chinese are going to be there. It won't be long till the Chinese are on the moon, and we're trying to beat them there. This is like the space race against the Russians that we had about getting into space.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. I'm interested to see how this goes and how things work. More to follow on this. I mean, $20 billion is probably just a start to get it going. I think the cost associated with actually establishing a base on the moon will be a lot more.
What amazes me, though, is the lack of opposition to this that we've heard or haven't heard. I mean, every other time we do something in space, you hear people about it. We could use that money for other stuff. I don't understand why we're not getting the heat on this.
Well, I think it ties right into our main subject that we covered. If we are doing damage to the earth, eventually we may have to find somewhere else to live. So I think this is a worthy investment into the future for space travel and to explore other worlds. I mean, obviously we don't have the technology to travel to other worlds today, but we're never going to get there unless we're working on it.
Yeah. But again, what is it? I think I read the other day, the closest at light speed, the closest inhabitable planet's 40,000 years away.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to take something other than standard propulsion to get us there.
All right. Last thing, I'll let you open up.
We lost Chuck Norris at 86 years old last week. That one of those where he's made such an impact in so many different areas, you know, professional fighting, infomercials, action movies. I mean, he's a consummate action movie star. And I had the privilege of meeting him at a convention 3 years ago. Just the nicest guy. You know how they rush everybody through those here sign this. And no, he talked with you. He'd ask you what was your favorite movie. He'd take a picture with you. He'd laugh with you. And he was just, from all accounts, just an all around great guy. And I mean, if you've not seen Chuck Norris in a movie, I mean, you got to be living under a rock. I mean, he was everywhere for the longest time. And my favorite thing on him was that epic fight at the end of the movie Way of the Dragon in the Roman Colosseum. And I actually got him to sign a poster of the two of them together in that fight scene. That was amazing. And I mean, we're at the point where we've lost a lot of other, folks so far this year. And recently it's really sad, but it's when you meet somebody personally, it's a little different. But yeah, he was just everywhere, and just all the Chuck Norris jokes you hear. He was bitten by a rattlesnake, and after 5 painful days, the rattlesnake died. Everybody's heard a Chuck Norris joke. It's just 86 though, not a bad year, and a remarkable life.
Yeah, and how about the big news about his illegitimate daughter? Right, that's been all over the news.
Yeah,
he's known it for 30 years.
Of course it is. Yeah, illegitimate daughter. I mean, name me a star that doesn't have one.
No, I know. I'm sure. I'm not putting him down for it. It just I read it in the news. I'm like, okay, so why is that worthy news? Right? It comes down to like, why is that the big deal?
Now.
Yes.
Why is it now?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah.
So, well, good. I think we've run the gamut. Let's talk about our next podcast, Jim.
Next podcast. How do athletes really make their money?
How do athletes make their money? So one of our listeners came to us and made a recommendation about this topic, and it's pretty interesting. I think it'll be an interesting topic to cover about Chuck. Chuck is the one who bought it to us. And who pays athletes? How do the athletes really get paid? We think that it's just the teams that pay the athletes, but really we started doing some initial research, and it looks like that the funding comes from multiple streams, right, to fund athletes. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And our next podcast, Jim, we haven't locked in a date. I know we're coming up on a few key things in April, but I think we're good, right?
12th
for the 12th.
Yeah, I'm good for the 12th.
Awesome. So our next podcast about how athletes get paid and following the breadcrumb trail, the money.
Mm-hmm. And
Awesome.
I'll take us down a few neat rabbit holes.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Yep.
Well, Jim, we've run the gamut. I think we've covered it all.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Jim.
And we are
the Signal Brothers.
Have a good one, folks. Appreciate you.
Thank you, folks.
Hey, don't forget to like our Facebook page and our YouTube page, please. We're trying to grow the followers. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit the like.
Yep.